Welcome back to the Morning Kickoff Show. I'm your host, Matt Witt. And today on this episode, we're back to talk about our 10 reasons why the Vikings will win a Super Bowl for our annual hype video. Now, the beginning of this episode is a little bit choppy, if you'll see, but it gets better going on. I must have dropped in frames. Something was wrong with the internet at that time, but hope you all do enjoy this segment of this episode. Thank you. But if I can come up with 10 reasons why they will win the Super Bowl, don't count the Vikings out. And we're going to put that here. I did one of these last year, and it's the most watched video on my entire YouTube channel. So we'll see how this one does. But still, I believe this is our annual hype video for the Vikings season. Now, enough with that. Let's get on to the first reason why the Vikings will win the Super Bowl. Because everyone counts us out. Like I just mentioned, Vikings, everybody counts us out. And it feels like every year the Vikings are kind of above average, middle of the pack. This is the first time everyone's counting us out. Nobody has high hopes for the Vikings, and I love it. Keep that energy. Keep that coming, because when you have a chip on the shoulder, when Kirk has a chip on the shoulder, when hopefully Kevin O'Connell has this chip on the shoulder, the Vikings play better. And you see this every year. When the Vikings have a chip on their shoulder, when they're been already counted out, they tend to look a lot better. Think about how the Vikings have looked in the previous years coming off of a bad loss. They play better. And I love this because NFL Power Rankings have us ranked 22nd. ESPN has us ranked 23rd, below the Washington Commanders. Fine. Keep that energy. I hope ESPN, NFL, and PFF keep this entire season. Keep counting us out. PFF has us ranked 22nd. Now, typically teams to make a Super Bowl do start off the season in a top 5 power rankings. This last year, we did see the Bengals make a Super Bowl ranked 28th going into the season. So still, continue to count us out. Please, continue to count us out. And Vikings fans, stick by this. Stick by this, because let's hope that this chip on the shoulder will add to the Vikings' success, because I believe it will. Next up, continuing with this, the Vikings have 2 years in a row missed the playoffs. Another chip on the shoulder. These players want it. It's a new atmosphere here. New coaching staff, new starters, new star players, and multiple of these new starters have not made the playoffs with the Vikings in the last 2 years. First step to make the Super Bowl, you got to make the playoffs. Usually you got to win your division, but sometimes you can make it in as a wild card and win the Super Bowl, the same way we just saw the last 2 Super Bowls where wild card teams won it all. The Vikings haven't made the playoffs the last 2 seasons. Both had a losing record in 2021 and 2020. And now going into this next season, we have 13 new starters since the last time we've been in the playoffs. We now have a winning atmosphere. Watch out for the Minnesota Vikings, you guys. And I know going into this offseason, I was saying I'm a little bit pessimistic. I'm gonna be real with you all. And still to this point, I have a lot of doubts on this Vikings team, but still, stand by your Vikings, because this team should compete in this upcoming season, especially looking at the weak division. We'll get into that later. Don't worry. But this division is the weakest I've seen in a long time. Still, winning atmosphere. 13 of our starters now have not even been in the playoffs with the Vikings before. I believe, Justin Jefferson even hasn't been in the playoffs with the Vikings. So another player who should light up. He's on contract year now. He's competing for a maxed extension next year. Justin Jefferson, over 1,400 receiving yards in 2022. Next up, and the third reason, we're going to go on to number 8. We're kind of going from the lowest, and we're going to count up. Number 8, we have an entire new secondary. Looking at the last season for the Vikings, if you're making kind of a list of the reasons why the Vikings missed the playoffs, obviously you're going to put Mike Zimmer 1. Number 2, you'd probably put our secondary. Because one of the most important positions on every roster is having lockdown corners, having corners that can compete against these great wideouts, these great quarterbacks that can throw 60-yard passes now, one of them being in our division. It's a pass-heavy league, and you need corners who can compete against these guys. Now, last year, the Vikings finished, I believe it was 30th in the secondary, or at 30th against the pass, I believe it was, and that's primarily due to Rashad Breeland just crapping the bed all season. Mackenzie Alexander was god-awful as well, giving up 60-yard plays from the nickel. And now going to this next year, we addressed this situation, drafting Lewis Cine in the first round, which I hated the trade down, but still getting Lewis Cine at the 32nd pick was a great job. Chandon Sullivan bringing him in. He's worked with Mike Pettin in the past. He can come onto our organization. Andrew Booth Jr. getting him in the second round was a massive steal. So first 2 picks went both to secondary players. And then Caleb Evans was another addition. Again, on the secondary, you are seeing Cameron Dantzler. He got his weight up this offseason. He's looking like he's going to actually compete maybe for the starting role this next year. We also have veteran Patrick Peterson returning to the team. So we have an entire new secondary. I can't say the secondary is going to be better because a lot of these players are young. For all we know, they could typically corners in their first year don't look good. So I can't say that this is an improved secondary, but what I can say is it's new, so you can at least have your hopes up. So for that reason, a new secondary is one reason that could actually boost this Vikings team, depending on how these players look. Next up, no more Davante Adams or Allen Robinson in our division. Just how I talked about how our secondary was terrible last year, I don't think there's any debating. Davante Adams was the scariest player to play in our division every year. 3 touchdowns, 200 plus yards. He had a career day. Look at every game Davante Adams has had against the Vikings, and he had a field day against us every single game. And you can say the same about Allen Robinson. Not talking about this last season, talking about the past 2 seasons when he was with the Chicago Bears. These are 2 of the best route runners and pass catchers in the league that we don't even have to deal with anymore. They're out of our division. Davante Adams is no longer with Green Bay. Allen Robinson's no longer with Chicago. Same with everybody else who was good on that Chicago team is no longer there. Now looking at our wide receiver ones that we go up against, it's so nice. It puts a smile on my face. Jameson Williams, who we gave to Detroit Lions, I think was a terrible trade, but still, he will likely be their number 1 target, or number 2, maybe behind TJ Hawkinson. Darnell Mooney's the wide receiver 1 for the Chicago Bears. All respect to Darnell Mooney. That guy is no wide receiver 1, at least not yet. And then Christian Watson with the Green Bay Packers. Who the heck knows who the Green Bay Packers is going to throw to? I mean, they just lost. Not only did they lose Davante Adams, they lost the St. Brown kid, and they also lost MVS. So now, Christian Watson, who they drafted in the 2nd round, yeah, sure. I want to go against him a lot more than I wanted to go against Davante Adams and MVS. So I'm just so happy to see that. Okay, hot take. The Vikings might have been the only team that improved this offseason in the division. There's no debating the Chicago Bears got the Lions definitely improved. Okay, all respect to the Lions. They definitely improved. They're still not better than the Vikings. I mean, if that works. I mean, take a look. 30 years since they won a playoff games, nobody's fearing the Lions. They got better this offseason. Chicago Bears got much worse this offseason. They're going for a full rebuild now. Packers definitely got worse. There's no debating that. Getting rid of Davante Adams, they had to somehow afford Aaron Rodgers' contract, getting rid of a few other contracts. There's no questioning they got worse. One of their players they had to get rid of came to our team, Zadarius Smith. We'll get into that later. I'm excited because I believe the Vikings are the team that improved the most this offseason, and that helps us out so much because to make a Super Bowl, you typically have to start by winning your division to get that home field advantage in the playoffs. It just feels so good to be the team that improved the most this offseason, and it's hard because the Lions definitely improved a lot, especially in the draft, but still, I believe the Vikings are the better team, so I'll give it that they improved the most this offseason. But next up, another one that's so nice. That puts a smile on my face. Lights out Aaron Rodgers, because now we have one of the best pass rushing duos in all of football. Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith going from the edge against every opposing passer is going to be so fun to watch. And this is hands down top 7 pass rushing duo in the league. We have to wait to see how these players look. The only thing holding this back right now, although I believe that we have one of the best pass rushing duos in the league, which is crucial to have in the NFL, especially in 2022, these players suffer with a lot of injuries, and it kind of sucks to see. I mean, Danielle Hunter played, 4 games the last 2 years? Maybe it was 6 games. I can't remember. Zadarius Smith missed almost the entirety of this last season. I mean, these players are injury-prone players. If they stay healthy, which is very unlikely, we should be an elite defense. We should. I mean, it's going to depend on how the secondary looks. I mean, the defensive line, there's some question marks, but it should be a lot better of a defense than we've seen the last 2 years, and I'm hoping this does happen. Now, if they do get injured, we do have DJ Wanham, who has a lot of experience at obviously rushing the passer. We do have some other players we can maybe rotate in. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of Patrick Jones, Janarius Robinson. We could see some of these players step in as well, but still. Lights out Aaron Rodgers. Okay, this is the best pass rushing duo he maybe had to go against with the Vikings in a long time. Although the Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin pass rushing duo, I think, would actually trump this as of right now. But still, lights out Aaron Rodgers. Next up, an improved offensive line. And this is maybe one of the biggest things. I've talked about how the biggest reasons why the Vikings missed the playoffs last year, you would put Mike Zimmer 1, you'd put the secondary number 2, probably put injuries number 3, and the number 4 would have to go to this offensive line. And this offensive line last year for the Vikings, it feels like every year the offensive line for the Vikings is slowly getting better. See, last year the Vikings offensive line was still not great. It was still in the bottom half, but it was better than it was in 2020. In 2020, it was better than it was better than it was in 2020, and it was better than it was in 2019. So it just slowly is getting better. We're just going to have to wait and see how these players develop. But what we do know is that at least last year we saw some promise in a few players. Christian Darrisaw showed a lot of promise at left tackle. We'll have to see what he does in year 2. Ezra Cleveland was a star at left guard. People are kind of forgetting that. He showed a lot of promise and could be one of the best guards for the Vikings in the future, and he's going into year 3 now, so should develop. Now, Garrett Bradbury, obviously at center, was a big, massive failure, and it's good to know that this Vikings organization addressed that issue by bringing in Ed Ingram, who can play for center or right guard. You also brought in Schlottman, who was with the Denver Broncos last year. Bring him in, someone who can at least step in for Garrett Bradbury if he continues to look bad. We have a question mark at right guard, and then obviously Brian O'Neill's a stud at right tackle. So it's not to say that the Vikings offensive line is going to be even in the top half of the league, but at least what we can say is that it's likely that we improved. It's likely we improved, especially with just Christian Darrisaw and Ezra Cleveland going into year 2 and year 3. We should see a lot of improvement on this Vikings offensive line, and I love to see it. Plus, you can continue to throw CJ Ham to be an additional blocker. I mean, we have some players who can also block on this offense. It doesn't just have to be the offensive line to help out Kirk Cousins, because he needs all the time in the world to make a play. He's a good quarterback, great quarterback. But he needs a lot better of an offensive line than we've seen with some other quarterbacks on this team. Next up, the strength of schedule. Vikings strength of schedule ranks 20th in the league. Now, I know 20th in the league is not great, but still 20th ranked strength of schedule is amazing, because the last few seasons for the Vikings, the biggest issue has been their strength of schedule that's been holding them back. Now we're in an easy division, a much worse division than I think I've seen the last 5 seasons with the Vikings. We're playing the NFC East, who is not a great division. I mean, Commanders and Giants are undoubtedly worse than us. I mean, you're going to have to wait and see how these Eagles and Cowboys look. You're playing the AFC East, who outside of the Bills don't look that tough. I mean, Dolphins will have to wait and see. Patriots will have to wait and see. We know the Jets is going to be an easy one. And then looking at the additional games that we have, 49ers, Saints, and Colts. Now, 49ers, Saints, and Colts should all compete for a playoff berth and maybe are all going to be playoff teams, but we get all of them technically at home. We get to play the 49ers at home. We get to play the Colts at home. We get to play the Saints in London, which is going to be like it's a home game because we have a pretty big UK following. I love that the UK love the Vikings. Continue to show up to this game. Make it a home game. Make playing the Saints a home game. So seeing the schedule, when this schedule dropped, I was so hyped because it seems to never be in our favor. Our schedule seems to be one of the biggest things holding us back. This year, it's one of the biggest advantages, and why I have it 4th in this list, because like I said, typically it should not be ranked this high, but we got very lucky. We got very lucky. And sometimes you need a little luck to make the playoffs. Sometimes teams that win Super Bowls need a little bit of luck, and this could help out the Vikings. Next up, number 3, and this top 3 is strong. In my opinion, unbiased, or maybe it is bias. No, it's definitely bias. The Vikings have the best skilled position group in all of football. Dalvin Cook is the top 3 running back in the league. Justin Jefferson, top 3 wide receiver in the league. Adam Thielen, best receiver over the age of 30. KJ Osborne's top 5 at his position. Irv Smith Jr. looks like a promising tight end. Those 5 players right there completely show why you should be excited for this Vikings upcoming season. Now with a real offensive coaching staff, now with Kevin O'Connell, who knows how to run an offense, unlike the past 5 offensive coordinators it feels like we've had for this team. I mean, Kubiak, not Clint Kubiak, Gary Kubiak was decent. I mean, Kevin Stefanski was decent. But one thing they both had in common, they ran the ball way too damn much. Now we have Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the league, in my opinion. Undisputed top 3 receiver in the league. Make him the focal point of your offense. And you got a huge, massive supporting cast around him. You should be excited about this Vikings skilled position group. We have one of the best skilled position groups in the league. In my opinion, maybe it's biased, maybe it's unbiased. I feel like it's unbiased. We have the best skilled position group in the league. Not only that, not only the 5 players I just mentioned here, Alexander Madison's one of the best backup running backs in the league. BC Johnson showed a lot of promise his first 2 seasons before tearing his ACL. I mean, even who was it? Amir Smith-Marset showed a lot of promise last year. So we have a lot of bench players who can play a significant role onto this offense, to the point where maybe we do see another Adam Thielen injury. God forbid, it might happen. We have players who can step into his role and will still be a stacked offense. Our offense, front, back, and center is stacked. And it has been the last 3 seasons. Even though we've missed the playoffs the last 2 years, and that's mainly due to coaching and injuries just held us back. And it just shows how important having a real head coach is. Just having a new head coach, having Kevin O'Connell brings in a winning atmosphere. Go ahead. Watch this Adam Thielen interview that he had with Pat McAfee. If this episode right here doesn't get you excited for the Vikings' upcoming season, and you're still very pessimistic, which, I'm going to be honest, I'm not the most hopeful person, go watch that Adam Thielen interview, and you can see hands-on how much having a new coach does for your team. Watch it. That interview is one of the biggest reasons why I'm making this podcast episode right now. Next up, number 2, easiest division. I talked about this a little bit already, but Vikings division looks easier than it does since the last decade, maybe. I mean, Bears are now garbage. Bears, I've never seen a team in our division go from okay to so bad. It's clear the Bears are going through rebuild right now. According to NFL's power rankings, Bears are ranked 30th in the league. Lions are ranked 27th in the league. So even though the Vikings are ranked 22nd, which is terrible, and I love that. I mean, count us out like I already mentioned. Give us 22nd rank. I'm happy. You should give us 32nd rank because that's more of a chip on our shoulder. But 22nd rank, we're still ranked second in the division. It just shows how easy this division is. I mean, Bears, it's no question they're going through rebuild right now, and Justin Fields has a long way to go from being an elite quarterback. He showed a lot of promise his rookie season, but he still has a lot of progression to go. Lions are the Lions. They might have improved this offseason and maybe one of the most improved teams this offseason. They still have Jared Goff as their quarterback. I mean, their offensive line might be one of the best, but at the end of the day, as long as Jared Goff is starting under center, is anybody scared of Lions? I mean, even if it was Pat Mahomes starting under center, is anyone still scared of Lions? And then Packers are ranked 6th, which, although the Packers are ranked 6th, like I mentioned before, I believe that they are the best team in the division right now. Yeah, I'm sorry. As much as I hate the Packers, I think they are the best team in the division. They still got worse this offseason, losing Zadarius Smith, losing Davante Adams. I believe they lost some core starters in the offensive line as well. There's no question the Packers got worse this offseason. The Bears got worse this offseason. And the Vikings got better. If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what does. It makes me so excited. I'm so pumped for the Vikings next season. Yeah, they might disappoint again. And actually, it's very possible that they will. I think more likely than not, the Vikings tear me apart this upcoming season. But let me be excited. For the 15th season in a row, I mean, when did I start watching the Vikings? 2009. I feel like that's the first season I remember. I vividly remember. Yeah, they've let me down that season and every season since then. So, I mean, it's very likely that it will happen. But let's be honest. It's your team. Get excited. Number 1, you all knew it was going to be number 1. No more Zimmer. That's all I had to do. I didn't even have to show you the last 9. All I had to do was put this one, and the video would have been done. The episode would have been done. The last 2 seasons, the Vikings finished with a losing record despite having one of the best rosters in the NFL. We finished 8-9 last year. 2020, we finished 7-9. 2 seasons in a row, we finished with a losing record because mainly biggest reason was Mike Zimmer. All respect to Mike Zimmer. I just want to say that again because I say it a lot. Mike Zimmer, in my opinion, was a top 3 head coach in Vikings history. But he screwed us the last 2 seasons. And it was a must-needed change in this locker room. Although I'm a Mike Zimmer fan looking at the first half of his season, through the Kirk Cousins era, he screwed us year after year after year. And it just shows you how important having a head coach and quarterback relationship is in your locker room. And if you don't think that they had a bad relationship, go ahead and watch Rick Spielman's interview with Colin Cowherd. Rick Spielman basically said himself that the connection between Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins was bad. If you don't believe that really was the truth, go ahead and see what Rick Spielman said himself. He didn't word it like that, but trust me, you can feel what's going on in the interviews. Just shows how having a real legitimate offensive-minded or sometimes defensive-minded head coach can change an entire atmosphere, change an entire locker room. Everybody wants to win now. Watch every interview you've seen in the past. Watch everything you've seen over the last couple weeks or over the last couple months. You'll see that these players have a lot more energy, have a lot more optimism about this upcoming season than they have in the past through specifically the Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins era is what we're looking at. Mike Zimmer's Mike Zimmer's run with the Vikings was split into two parts. It was the great defensive era. No, we'll just say the pre-Kirk Cousins era and the post-Kirk Cousins era. We'll say that. Or the pre-Kirk Cousins era and the Kirk Cousins era. We'll say that was the two eras for Mike Zimmer's career or run with the Vikings. But with that being said, still, if I can come up with 10 reasons why the Vikings should win a Super Bowl this next year, don't count them out. At least, I'm not telling you put your money on the Vikings winning the Super Bowl. I'm just saying, don't count them out. Put them on the list as at least competitors. Someone who should at least sneak into the playoffs and maybe make some noise in the playoffs. That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm expecting for this Vikings team. Yeah, they're going to let me down. I know. I know they will. Like they did every year my entire life. But hey, if I can come up with 10 reasons, let's not count them out. Thank you all for tuning into this episode. I really appreciate all you guys tuning into this. Go Minnesota Vikings. Skull 2022-2023 World Champs. Have a great day. Oh, also, happy birthday, Justin Jefferson. Forgot to mention that. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday to the best receiver in the league. Have a great day.